Hallo, hallo. Da var vi klare for nytt webinar. Veldig hyggelig at så mange har registrert seg og deltar på det webinaret her, så det er tydelig at det her er et webinar som mange har interesse av. Det er bra. Mitt navn er Jørgen Tømte, jeg jobber som CISO i Data Equipment, og har en liten forkjærlighet til Zero Trust. I dag skal Ed Koehler fra Extreme Networks presentere sine tanker og visjoner om Zero Trust, og hva man må tenke på for å få på plass et godt sikkerhetsregime i egen organisasjon. So, Ed, are you there?
I am here, Glenn.
You are here. Perfect. Thank you. So, here we go. Short about me. As I said, I work as a CISO in data equipment. I also call myself a Zero Trust soldier because I feel that I work in the market to push the Zero Trust because I'm a so strong believer of this concept that this is crucial for me. I used to say to customers that we have to remember one thing, and that is that successful attacks occur in allowed traffic. Because of that, we have to reduce the attack surface. Zero Trust is a crucial part of that, to take control of what we allow. We can't be naive on what we allow. We can't have focus on denying, because that is a failed strategy. We have to have focus on what we allow and take control of that. I live just north of Oslo, married, 2 kids, and I have way too many hobbies with cycling. I do telemark skiing, I run a motorcycle, and several other things, not enough hours in the day. Anyway, as beginning, we want to get a profiling on the ones attending this webinar. So we send you some questions that you can answer so that me and Ed know more about the ones participating here. What's your knowledge about Zero Trust, and yeah, where you are when it comes to Zero Trust. Have you heard about it, and are you using it? Are you using parts of Zero Trust in your organization today? So that's interesting. We see a lot of things here when it comes to the use of Zero Trust. So I see people are good at commenting here now, so that's good. I'll just give it a few seconds more, and we'll see how it ends here. Seems like it stopped here now. So I'll end the poll, Ed, and I'll share the result. And then also Ed can see here that Zero Trust is well known for you. And
okay, well, this is good. We have a foundation, excellent, and we also have some folks who are unsure or are partly there, and then there are some folks who have not started. This is good. This is a good, healthy mix.
Exactly. Yeah. Good. So from there, perhaps you, Ed, could introduce yourself. We got aware of something we wasn't aware of yesterday when it came to you. You're a fan of apples.
I am. I'm an apple farmer. Apple, I own an orchard. I have about 7 different varieties. Some which are fairly old trees. You can see some of them right in the foreground. And then I have many that are younger and of the new varieties. So it's a hobby of mine. From a practice, you know, I in a hobby perspective, I'm a cybersecurity person. That's what I do. I have to say that I wish I was in Norway right now, speaking to all of you in person. I really do. It's one of my favorite countries. I've been all over the world, and I always love returning to Norway. But unfortunately, we can't make that happen. So a little background on who I am. I have a 3-phase role at Extreme Networks. I obviously have a forward-facing role that talks to partners, talks to customers in the community at large. I do a lot of industry events, particularly with military and federal government. And then also I do quite a bit directing our product directions, particularly in the areas of security and enhancement of the practice. And then I also work with our CISO on an internal team for proper security practice within Extreme itself. So interesting job.
Sounds good. So then I'll leave it to you, Ed, and you can run your presentation.
Let's see. Okay, everyone can see the screen?
Yes, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So I hope you folks are not looking for a lot of glitzy graphics. I kind of made a choice early on that I could create a whole lot of great graphics and shrink the font so no one could read the slides. But I made the decision not to do that. I want to emphasize, first of all, I'm not a salesperson. I am not even a systems engineer. I'm an actual distinguished principal engineer, both within IEEE and IETF. And I'm also valued as that externally or internally within Extreme, excuse me. So what I'd like to do is I just want to go through a little bit of a roadmap as far as what we're doing. What I want to do is I want to introduce the concept of zero trust. And I mean concept because it is a concept. It's not a product. If you have any vendor that's coming up, knocking on your door saying they have a zero trust product, you should probably tell them there's the door and you should be leaving. Because there is no product that you're going to buy, whether it's from Extreme or any other vendor, that's going to give you a zero trust implementation. Zero trust is a practice. I like to refer to it almost as a Zen of trust. And here is the only sexy graphic that you will see. And that is the implication that what I'm going to talk about is a cyclic practice that needs to be implemented and maintained. And notice how zero trust is part of it in itself. But like all things, you could look at zero trust as being wrapped by all of these other things that I'm going to talk about throughout this presentation. And you'll notice, and you will get the sense, at least I hope you will, of some sort of cyclic implementation that needs to occur in a constant, what I call a living practice that needs to be implemented. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on each of these points. The first one is risk assessment and an overall asset inventory. Most people do not know what is in their network, at least to the degree of 100%. Many can't even enumerate half of what is in their network. I would challenge and posit that zero trust in that scenario is an unobtainable goal. So the first thing we need to do, and I know no one wants to hear this because this is hard work, is a risk assessment. You have to go in, you have to get an inventory, you have to do an assessment for vulnerabilities. Now, many people who go at this, they will start it with their IT security department. That is actually probably one of the worst things you can do because something like that is probably going to train wreck. The best way to do it is to work with your business. Work with your superiors. They will tell you what's most critical, what absolutely has to be run, what absolutely has to be checked for vulnerabilities. And then you go in and outside of the IT environment, look at any operational technologies you have, if you're a manufacturer, particularly floors, things of that nature, or your IoT environments. And many folks will tell me, I don't have IoT. Well, I'll say, do you have video surveillance? They'll say, yes. I say, that's IoT. Do you have a PA system? Yes. Do you have an HVAC system that's wired on? Yes, that's all IoT. You need to consider those assets as well. And then once you do that, if you get the dialogue set up ahead of time, it allows you to prioritize. And you prioritize from two aspects. First of all, the assessment itself. Obviously, if no one's indicated a priority or a criticality to a system, that should sit lower on the totem pole from looking at it even. But the point is you get a complete inventory, and then your assessment happens according to priorities that are given to you by your business leaders. Then once that happens, then you move down and start to clean up. Now, on each slide, I'm in purple, I'm showing different bullets. I'm not going to go through those, but I do want you to read them as I'm talking, because it's important that you realize that many of these points that I'm bringing up have actual hard data to back them. And I'm actually providing an ebook to all of you after the fact that will have further information that you can actually go out and research for yourselves. Now, zero trust. Now we can actually talk about this, because this is something that when you look at it, seems fairly simple at face value, but it's not. In essence, any device or any user that comes onto the network and you provide what I call a modicum of trust is never fully trusted. In other words, you're going to see that I talk about visibility, I talk about analytics, I talk about anomaly searching in threat hunting. And the reason why is because any particular device can go bad. 34% of data breaches involved internal actors. And 30% are within organizations themselves. Now, people kind of get shocked at that, thinking that, none of my people are going to go bad. But what people don't realize is that a phishing exercise and an innocent employee clicking on the wrong URL can actually provide a vector where now the attacker is inside. Once they actually are inside the network and have a pivot point, they can then move, and lateral movement is one of the key things here. So we want to start from a vantage point that no one is trusted. We also want to educate our staff and end users about proper security practices. And actually, it's ideal, and I'm going to talk about this a little later, to run phishing campaigns within your own organization. I do that on a regular basis, and everyone loves me for it. But the point is many people will get fooled. They will click. And sometimes it will be an email about a shipment, and you need to click on this to find out the tracking ID, things of that nature, and you'd be surprised how many people will actually click on the URL. Strictly enforce those practices, come back with education, and then also realize that you need to come back. And that really is where I want to talk about next, is network visibility. Because even after something gets the modicum of trust, you cannot trust. So you need to invest in visibility. You need to invest in analytics. And that is the big thing to realize, is that in order to see something early, because let's face it, if you have an advanced persistent threat that for some reason or another has targeted you, sooner or later, they're going to have some degree of success. The question is how deep they get and how long they're there. And by the way, there is some stats that show that average APTs are in your network for around 200 days before they really start to do anything, which is usually, if they stay that long and that quiet, it's to exfiltrate data and intellectual property or personal information. Note the data here. 61% of networking professionals had no confidence that they knew every device on their network. Visibility can be a big thing to that. Now, visibility and the analytics can help you identify, through your Zero Trust NAC implementation, what's in your network. And once you have that complete inventory, now you can step towards the asset assessment. So guys, this is a complementary cycle that has to happen. And don't think that once you do it once, you're done. That's not the case, and I'm hopefully thinking that everyone is aware of that. But visibility is a very big piece to this, and it's also very key to detecting IoT breaches, and I want to talk about that a little later on as well. Best practice number 4, policy-based access control. If you introduce a zero trust framework, you have to gate your users. And it's basically on a least known premises. So if you don't need to see the data, then you shouldn't have access to it. And segmentation will complement this. But in order to implement anything like that, we have to have policy-based access control. And this gets gating even for certain users between different devices or even different access methods. So that, for instance, with a PC mandated wireline attachment, I may get access to systems that with a BYOD device on wireless, even though I'm in the same campus, I would not have access because of the difference. Keep in mind that every single entity in your network is a composite entity, not only according to the device it is, but the user combined with it and its location. So there can be strong geofencing and strong policies to turn off access when people move to certain different points in the campus or even different locations within a particular enterprise. Also, remember that firewalls can really complement here. We do a lot within the network, and obviously catching things as early at the edge as possible is the best thing to do. But don't forget that we have the back cavalry, if you will, on the back end that actually protects the ingress and egress to the individual segments. And make sure you're coordinated with that, and make sure your policy rules match what you want in the firewall as far as what you want from a behavior within those segments themselves. Oh, top reasons for unsuccessful NAC implementations are a lack of qualified IT personnel, and the lack of a granular policy establishment. This is something that you need to do even before you start thinking about NAC. Network segmentation. This goes by itself, and I talk about this a lot. We have a technology called Fabric Connect, and I actually helped invent that technology. It is one of the most secure segmentation technologies on the planet. And but it's like anything else. If you and I do see some customers do this, they implement Fabric Connect and they put everyone in the global routing table. Well, at that point, it's like buying a next generation firewall and putting an any-to-any rule set. You're not going to get what you want. So segmentation is a big thing. Obviously, we want to make sure that segmentations are coordinated with the policy access control. So now what happens is users are put into a network, they're gated according to segments that have expected normal behaviors according to the application profiles you should see. And then we come back to network visibility to follow up and validate that that is indeed the case. So I think I'm hoping that you're starting to see an ecosystem of practice here that needs to be implemented. And I want to emphasize that obviously we prefer that this were Extreme Networks technology, but it does not have to be. I'm giving generic practice that you can implement whether you have Extreme or not. Data compliance is boring. Let's face it, there's no doubt about it. However, it needs to be done. But a lot of folks confuse compliance with security. And I want to challenge the fact that it's not. You can achieve data compliance, but still not be secure, and certainly not be zero trust. So we have to realize that this is an important component, particularly when protecting personal information and data privacy. And we have to pay close attention to those mandates. If we can automate the configuration compliance wherever possible, that becomes very attractive because we reduce human errors in what is largely a repetitive sequence. And we can work a lot with technologies that we have in order to help you guys there. But keep in mind that this can be done, with outsourced type of technologies as well. The point is that data compliance should not be viewed as security. However, it is an important component to the overall security practice. IoT and OT. Many people think this is, and by the way, I've spent probably around 2 years doing research in this area. And we've spent a lot of time and we've enhanced a lot of what we've done within our analytics and security approach for this. And a lot of people think this is an intractable thing because the devices are so widely varied. But I would challenge that it's not. I would challenge that this actually could be easier. But keep in mind the vulnerability. Particularly if a password is backdoored, it takes about 3 minutes really to compromise an IoT device. And after that, it can become a pivot. And by the way, we're seeing a trend where IoT devices become a very attractive vector for ransomware into organizations. Because think about it, if I'm going to get ransomware into you, then I'm going to do two things. I'm either going to poison your DNS and send you to a bad website where you will contract code and pull it back into the enterprise, or I will send you a phishing email or an SMS text and hopefully get you to click on a URL. Either way, I got to get you, the human being, to do something. But think about it. If I can compromise an IoT device, I don't have to get a human to do anything. Now I have malicious code in your network infrastructure, and I can use the IoT device to do lateral pivots. And if the IoT device is sharing the same domain as the user community, game over. I've won. So this is something that we need to realize. But fortunately, IoT devices have very narrow ranges of behavior. When you look at most IoT devices, they are fairly simple. They do the same thing day in, day out. Anomalies are fairly easy to see. We've done a lot of analysis on this. Now, granted, some are a little bit wider than others, but great example is a video surveillance camera. It does the same thing day in, day out, should never change its behavior, should never talk to anything else. It's the same thing with healthcare, infusion pumps, HVAC systems. There are particularly OT technologies on production floors, there are very narrow ranges of normalized behaviors. And once we can quantify them, i.e. profile them, we can see anomalies. And once we see anomalies, they should be investigated very early. So keep in mind, the triple stand, the milking stool, if you will, is the always stable, the practice of policy, segmentation in concert with the policy, and then analytics following up to monitor those devices. Once you get to this, now you're saying, okay, I have IoT devices or I have OT devices, but I don't even trust those because they can go bad too. I mean, the purple slot, the purple text on the right-hand side of the slide indicates that these devices can be compromised. And the scary part about it is only 5% of IoT devices deployed today are properly segmented away from the user community. Many people take their Alexa or whatever tool they have and they bring it into their cubicle. Obviously, these things need to be identified. I don't think that personal IoT should be in an enterprise. That's just my opinion, but if you decide that you want or allow that to happen, then you have to properly segment them and you have to have appropriate policy and treat them just like anything else. We are actually in a new frontier here with tracking cybersecurity, and this is obviously everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. And it's an important part because there's a lot of data that is coming into the network, and many times people accrue data and it gets so massive that they don't know what to do with it. It's inactionable information. AI, ML, and complementary analytics. Analytics is the engine that sits under AI and ML, and think of AI and ML as higher level processes to basically massage the data, run algorithmics against it, to basically present actionable knowledge to the human being. And you'll find that we do a lot of that with our analytics in our management console, but we also do that quite a bit with Extreme IQ Cloud, where you can go up and take huge amounts of data, disseminate them, compare them against the rest of the cloud community, which gives you normalization, and from there you can make actionable decisions. AI is increasingly becoming actual part of the business, and it's becoming an expected practice. However, the other thing we have to realize is that hackers are starting to leverage AI and ML as well. We're starting to see smart worm bots, for instance, that can actually learn as they go and morph as they move, and actually have several modes or metamorphosis throughout the process. So don't think that the bad guys aren't taking this and using that technology as well. So it's a lot like encryption. You know, we are looking forward to the day when we can have quantum level encryption, but we're also cognizant of the fact that it's a race, because cognitive computing and quantum level computing could potentially break some of our strongest cybersecurity codes. The cloud. There is a lot of focus on the cloud, particularly within Extreme. And we have a very large practice within Extreme that actually provides service as a, or software as a service, or networking as a service. But also keep in mind that there are many other purposes for cloud. Many people are using it to back up data. Many people are using it as an assurance for ransomware. And by the way, I have many recommendations and practices for that. But multi-level cloud security is really what it's all about. Identify what's public, what's private, what can be hybrid. Make sure that your data goes into the right places. Ensure your data compliance. Before anything gets posted, make sure it's trackable. Make sure that you have compliance labeling, confidential, public, whatever the case may be. You know, CISSP and several other organizations give recommendations on how to classify data. You know, there are military methods, commercial methods, so forth, so on. Meet regulatory compliance, particularly ISO 27001, but we're also working towards SOC 2 as well. Comprehensive data continuity and disaster recovery plan, and this is big for ransomware. Offline backups. If you have backups and they are connected like a continuous data protection, they are just as liable to the front end store. They will be compromised. So you have to have a method of snapping and disconnecting to make sure that you have backups that have no connectivity to the compromised systems. And that gives you a clean repository. Now, obviously, you have to have some sort of system in order to validate the fact that what you backed up is indeed clean. But there are companies out there that do that quite effectively, most of them in the storage arena. Again, continuous data protecting or mirroring, that's an online asset. It is not truly segmented away. So we have to realize that if we really want to protect ourselves appropriately, we want to make sure that our backups truly are offline. There is an organization also called Cloud Security Alliance. This is an important organization that you should get to know. They provide lots of recommendations in this space. And then finally, I want to wrap up with a security ecosystem. There's no one company that's going to do it alone. So you have to have an established ecosystem. This is a sample of the ecosystems that we have generated. In the lower right-hand side, you'll see security focus. And again, this is not a mutually exclusive list, so there are others that have been added since. Here's our products. Extreme Fabric Connect, I've referred to already. I also talked about Extreme Cloud Security. NAC, either control or cloud-based, A3. Wi-Fi security, a big piece to it. Defender for IoT, which is a specific solution that I can talk about sometime on a specific agenda point. And then compliance. Again, compliance, it's a boring thing, but automating it makes it easy, makes it consistent, and eliminates human error. And then finally, Extreme Air Defense, which is probably the most advanced wireless intrusion protection in the industry. Again, remember folks, this has to be a living practice. Get the basics right, enforce the proper security practices, leverage the industry resources that are available to you, and have continued vigilance. Again, zero trust means no one is ever trusted, or nothing is ever trusted. Again, I want to thank you for your time. As the world becomes more connected, more cloud-driven, we're going to have to pay more attention to this, and really zero trust is something that really has to be maintained as an overall practice. Again, I like to refer to it as a Zen. It is an actual Zen, a focal practice that you really need to maintain in this cyclic matter. Okay, Goran, I'm going to hand it back to you. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate the time.
Perfect, Ed. Thank you very much. Very, very good. We don't have much time for question and so here, but I just have one question. You have 10 bullet points here. Would you say that you would prioritize them in the order you've made them? Like number 1 is risk assessment?
Well, that's the reason why I did risk assessment first, because yes, I think that's foundational. However, many people will find that they don't have the right technology sets in place in order to do a risk assessment. And if you're doing it manually, you know, with a pad and paper, it can be difficult. So many times you have to get the visibility in the analytics capability and even implement NAC. For instance, one of the practices that we will use with customers is to implement NAC and then actually have NAC go into a trust everything mode. Now that seems kind of foolish. It's like, why would you do that? Well, what happens is now the NAC gets a complete inventory of everything that touches the network. And from there, you have your asset list. So think of it as complementary. And I guess to say which order they would fall in, it depends on where you're at. If you're very, very premature in this, you may have to invest into the technologies in order to get to the point where you can start with an assessment.
Exactly. One question from the audience. You just touched next generation firewall. Can you give some examples of what information that will be of great value for a next generation firewall from the network?
Well, when you look at it, and this is where we do quite a bit of coordination between different firewall vendors, is to compare what happens at the port level, because obviously when we do telemetry and analytics, we're gaining things right at the edge, either at the wireless access point or at the switch port. And there's a certain amount of information that we can get, and obviously getting it prematurely at the edge, but coordinating anomalies, for instance, to see when malware is trying to leave a segment. Think about it. If something comes in and establishes a pivot point, very seldom, unless they're very, very lucky, and at that point they should probably go to Monte Carlo or Las Vegas, they're not going to be where they want to be. Mm-hmm. They have to move laterally. They have to get out of the segment. So you want to watch for anomalies of behavior, user machines trying to access resources that they shouldn't be accessing, things of that nature, because at that point, in order to move laterally, they have to break the policy to some degree, and that's where you catch the anomalies.
Good. Thank you. So we're going to wrap it up here. Just briefly, we at Data Equipment work quite close with Zero Trust. We promote it. We have our own website, zerotrust.no. We work with it with the different vendors, as Ed say, and I fully agree. No products are Zero Trust. And if you get a vendor on your door saying we have Zero Trust products, you should return the vendor and say, come back another time because you don't have a Zero Trust product. We work with NSM in their founding principles for ICT security and Zero Trust. We map that together. And we are also a partner of Cloud Security Alliance that you briefly mentioned. We have our next webinar when it comes to email security. And we have put all the webinar recordings in our website. So if you want to see the old webinars, you can get it there. We have a second poll here. If Zoom is with me here now, let's see. Because we have talked to Ed about this. Can you see my screen, by the way?
We can.
You can. Can you see the poll now?
I can.
There's something buggy with the view here now. I don't know. What slide do you see? Because there's something wrong. I should see it with a green frame around it, but I don't see it. Can you see my PowerPoint?
I can see it. It popped up. Folks, if you click polls down below,
yeah.
Vi ser poll, og vi ser...
Yeah, because I've let go of my screen.
Ser du spørsmålssliden?
Yes.
Okay, no feilbevisning. Okay. So Ed is willing to set up a second webinar with a theme based on your feedback. So the audience here, if you have some wishes that you want Ed to go through later, we can do that. If you have an idea that is not in this list, just send it to us, come with the idea, and we will have it up to discussion. And we will put up a webinar in, we haven't set the date yet, but not too far into the future. We have to discuss with Ed when he has time. So with that, we will just let the poll go, and we will update you with an email tomorrow, and you will get the information about the poll tomorrow. So then we'll take it there. Follow us.
Thank you
on
very
Facebook
much,
and
folks.
LinkedIn. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ed. Very good. And I hope it was interesting for the people attending. I really
Yes,
really
I hope you found it informative.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ed. Talk to you later.
Take care, folks.
Yes.